Hello everyone, and welcome to Ensuring Website Accessibility. If we haven't met before, my name is Misty Anderson, and I'm an instructional designer for the Center for Teaching Arts and Technology, or CTAT for short. I'm here today with my wonderful colleague, Zach Corder, and our director, Dr. Susan Sutton. Just to get started today, we're going to talk about making websites compliant, probably dive in a little bit to making other types of electronic materials compliant, accessibility compliant, because they're very closely tied together. But I wanted to start out with our why for today. So we've heard a lot of talk about the push for accessibility lately. And yes, it's legally required, but we're not making all of the content fully accessible just because it's required. But instead, as I've heard President Whaley say many times, it's just simply the right thing to do for our students. It ensures a level playing field for all students so they can focus on learning rather than how to access difficult materials. So let's look at how we'll get started. First, we've already covered the why about accessibility. Next, we'll look at how accessibility applies inside Momentum and on our external websites. I'll show you a simple testing tool called Wave and another companion testing tool to that. And then we'll wrap up with some great resources we can share with you for future use. Although there are much more important reasons to achieve full accessibility, we would be remiss if we didn't address the legal reasons. But don't worry, we'll keep it simple. We're mandated by the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act for our facilities and services to be fully compliant to all clientele we serve, whether it be faculty, staff, students, or the general public. You can think of ADA as a broader reference to accessibility, while Section 508 requires federal agencies and vendors doing business with federal agencies to create, buy, and use technology that is accessible to all people. To support compliance, the Web Content Accessibility Standards, or the WCAG checklist, you've probably heard that numerous times, was created, and it helps explain how to meet these rules in your content. Following the WCAG 2.1 standards may sound technical, but really it's about creating materials that work well for everyone. Clear structure, readable text, and inclusive design. We've developed a reference guide for you with the WCAG standards, along with real working problem examples and proposed solutions to those situations. We'll be happy to share a copy of this guide with you if you would like. Just send us an email at ctatmailbox@runstate.edu or check our website for it. Okay, let's get into setting up our materials. So the header and structures, when you're designing pages or documents, how you structure material really matters. You want to use proper heading levels. For example, the H1 through H3 that we see here. Of course, there are levels on down to H6 if you need them. These heading distinctions are featured in a variety of programs we use here at Runstate, including Word and Momentum. So let's take a look at that. So if you were developing a page in Momentum, you would just simply highlight the text, and here on this toolbar, and I'm creating a file in this instance, you can pick your heading level. And I would drill down the different sections, just their prominence on the page, and it has to be logical. So as you see, I'm using header 1, header 2, header 3. You don't want to go from like header 1 to header 4. Even though you may want a smaller header for a paragraph or some information on your page, you want to keep the headers going in the same logical order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at a Word example. So in Word, the header designations are in the Styles pane. So if I highlight my text and I go to Styles, and I can find header 1, header 2, header 3. So most programs have headers already set up for you and easy to use. Now, You notice this one turned the text blue, and I'm okay with that. The contrast is good, and we'll talk about contrast in a little bit. But you can also, in Word, you can edit the styles. Like you can edit heading 1. We'll look at that in a later training, but just know that you can still make that unique to your document. Okay, so again, you don't want to skip levels. You also don't want to use just plain paragraph text and try to make it look like a heading by making it slightly larger or bolding it, because the screen reader will not read that heading the same way, and the logic of the page will be lost on it. And then also we want to keep our headings consistent and short. So 2-3 words at most for a heading is optimal when you're designing a document. So let's talk about color contrast. We mentioned it just briefly a few moments ago, but it's something we don't always think about until it becomes a problem. So color contrast is simply how well your text stands out from its background. So if you've ever struggled to read light gray text on a white slide, you know what low contrast feels like. Aim for strong contrast like black on white or dark. Let's look at some examples. Or dark blue on light gray. Tools like WebAIM's Color Contrast Analyzer made this really easy to test, and we'll look at that in a minute. But see the examples here, the bad examples, a darker blue on a black, green on orange, just colors that give a fuzzy effect, like you can see here, that fuzzy effect. Red on green. Red text generally is not a good idea unless you're using it solely on a white background or sometimes on a black background, but it's something more times than not to stay away from. But the good examples, a light yellow on a black, black on green is, is good. It's getting a little fuzzy, but basically light on dark or dark on light. So let's take a look at a tool that will help you with color contrast checks. Okay, so here we are on webaim.org, and we're going to see this again later when we look at the Wave tool as well, and we'll give you the URL for this. But basically, what I would recommend is that you use their bookmarklet. If you visit this page, it's as simple as having your bookmark tool viewable, and then you grab that tool, pull it up here, and drop it. And it adds it to your page. That way, when you go to a page, and just for example's sake, let's go to the Rhone State homepage, and you click that contrast checker, it tells you immediately, normal text pass, large text pass. So everything's passed. This page is viewable by WCAG standards. So that's a great tool to have to analyze if we're concerned at all about color contrast on a page. Okay, so next is color and pattern. This is a big one because we don't want to rely on color alone to share information. If something is important, make sure that meaning isn't lost to someone who can't distinguish color well, like color blindness. For example, instead of saying items in red are required, or in this case, classes in red are not required, you could add an asterisk or use a label to denote those differences. So in this example, we've moved to, we still have the color, the red and the green, but we've also added the no and yes, right? Giving another visual indicator of what's required and what's not required. Equally important, do not put text over a busy image because it's hard to read. Even in this example where I've put a shadow behind it, it's still hard to read those names. So when at all possible, locate the names or locate text not on top of a busy background. Also, when you're using a graph, we don't want to use just color to indicate the different parts of a graph. Partner that with pattern. And most programs, Word does it, most programs that will generate a graph will also allow you to add texture along with color to those charts or graphs, in this case a pie chart. Okay, so hyperlinks. Hyperlinks instead of dropping a full URL, which we all know that in some instances can be like a novel, we want to use descriptive text that tells people what they're going to see. For example, instead of to submit your essay to the instructor, click here, you might want to try submit your assignment in Dropbox. It's more succinct, it's more directly related to the action that's going to happen when they click that button, because when they click the button, they're going to go to Dropbox to submit their papers. Now, avoid using full URLs in posts unless that URL is very short, like runstate.edu. I would put that in a post. So that's on your web page. Post is actually referring to social media, but if it's very short, runstate.edu, then I think it would be fine to include that in your text of your document or on your website. And lastly, do not use images as links, because the page reader is going to read the name of that image. So say you have a click here button, and the name of the button is FP4365. That's what the page reader is going to read, unless you have alt text to describe the function. So text for that link should be click here to go to runstate.edu. So be descriptive in your link. Just some general best practices for hyperlinks. An underline, of course, is the universal way to indicate a link, so do not remove the underline from your link. Color, use a distinct color. You know, traditionally links are the blue with the underline, but you can use a color of your choice, but remember to keep it consistent on all of your links, not just some of your links, so the user is accustomed to what a link looks like. And then again, we've already addressed this, but don't use generic phrases like click here or read more. If they're going to click something, tell them what they're going to read. So if they're going to click here to read case study X or something along those lines, not just click here. And then repeat the link destination for context if needed, and that's just a case-by-case situation. You would determine that. I think 9 times out of 10 it probably wouldn't be needed. And then in printable documents, you want to spell out the URL, because of course after they print it, they're not going to be able to click a link. Oftentimes you see folks put the link, but then in parentheses spell out the URL. So you want to come up with a style for that if you anticipate your user printing your document. So next is tables. Tables are great for showing data, but they can become confusing very fast for a page reader. So only use them for actual data, not for laying out the content of your page. You want to stick to a single header row. Let's look at an example. And a single header column. Avoid merged or blank cells and give your table a simple title or caption. And that's available within Momentum. That's absolutely available within Word, and we'll do a training on Word and all the Microsoft products next month, I think. All of these things together make it much easier for screen readers and for anyone just simply scanning the content. This is your main header. This will be your column header. So no blank cells, when at all possible, no merged cells, and tag that table as a table. Okay, so keyboard accessibility. Accessibility in this format is easy to overlook because we all take for granted the use of our mouse, right? That we can grab that mouse and click to go here or there, but not all users can use a mouse. So some of our users will be regulated to a keyboard or other assistive device to navigate our online content. So it's important to make sure that all of the interactive elements on our page or on our course, like menus, buttons, and forms, can be accessed with the keyboard alone. A quick test is to unplug your mouse or turn your mouse off and try tabbing through your site to see if everything still works. So let's test that out. We're going to go back to the Runstate homepage, and let's see if we can tab our way through the Runstate homepage. So I'm on that top menu now that's got programs, It's going very logically down the page. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So that is a very nice tabbing through. I just wanted to go back up to the top and make sure, because basically where you click the mouse at first when you start tabbing, that's where it's going to go. So that is nicely done on our web designer's part. So the last thing we want to look at today is video accessibility, because we use a lot of video at Roane State, whether it's in classes or showing off our wonderful athletic teams, or Dr. Whaley, his messages we get on Facebook. We want to make sure that all of those things are accessible. So the best way to make a video accessible is to plan for accessibility from the start. I would highly recommend that you create a script for a video. It serves two purposes. It keeps you on track when you're delivering that video content, and then you can upload the script as the transcript when you post that video. Also, if you record your video in Zoom, it will automatically create a transcript for you, as will YouTube if you post it on YouTube. And I know some faculty and staff and whomever are making videos have concern about sharing videos on YouTube. But if you put your video on there on a private channel and leave it unlisted, only people with the URL can get to it. I can't say it was 100% unfindable, but it would be very hard to find it. So in both of those instances, Zoom creates a transcript, YouTube creates a transcript. That also means that YouTube creates closed captioning, which is also a recommendation for video, especially if the content of the video or any elements of the video are not directly mirrored also in the text of that document. So if you are in the audio portion of the video, so if you have a chart behind you, you're demonstrating something, and the information on the chart is relevant to what you are conveying with that video, but you don't specifically address it in an auditory fashion during the video, then you want the transcript to highlight what that graphic had included and how it related to what you were teaching or sharing in that video. So transcripts in Zoom and YouTube, they're not 100%, but they're easily editable. And if you have any trouble editing a transcript or closed captioning in YouTube, let any of us in CTAT know, and in 5 minutes we can show you how to do it. Likewise, in Zoom, when you download that transcript, you can download it in an editable form and then save it out as a Word document. Would be preferable to sharing with your audience as a transcript. Okay, so forms. A lot of our departments use forms. And basically on a form, you just want to share plenty of information, instructions on how to use that form. As in most forms, if you're using Microsoft Office forms, as you build it, be sure to always label the areas where you're collecting information. So let's go to the next slide. So in this case, the first and last name, you want to have descriptive labels for username and then email, and group the like information together. So first name and last name kind of naturally goes with username, and then your email address, the city and a street address, and then of course your phone number. So group those types of things together to make it easily understandable for the page reader and for your user. So to wrap up, best practices, we have that WCAG accessibility checklist for you, and we'll be happy to send that out if you would like it. Microsoft has its own accessibility checker, and we'll be going over that in the Microsoft version of these trainings. Facebook accessibility tips, Instagram and Twitter alt guides, those are all in a previous training we did, and you can find that recording on our website, ctat.roanestate.edu. And then the last thing we want to look at today is the WAVE tool. So let's take a look at that. So the WAVE tool is simply the wave.webaim.org, and we'll have that for you on our website. But here you just type in the URL of a site. In this case, we'll go back to using our Old Faithful runstate.edu, and WAVE is going to analyze that page, and it's going to tell you where it thinks you have trouble. So we only have one error, and we can go, let's click on to the details. So the error is we have some missing alt text. So if I click on that, it'll take me directly to where it thinks I'm missing alt text. If I click on any of these, it will take me there. And you know, the more you work with a web page, you will find that some of these are valid concerns. Like here it says suspicious alternative text. Well, I don't think you could be any more clear than image of Tennessee representing Run State's locations. So I'm not sure why they flagged that as suspicious, but it's pretty descriptive to me. Just know that you can click on any of these. Some of these you will want to act upon, and some of them you will just simply want to ignore, because you know by looking and from experience that that is not going to be of concern to your user. And if you're ever in doubt, you can also reach out to us, to CTAT. We would be happy to consult with you on that. I would also recommend you reach out to the Public Relations Office. They created the website, or they created our website, so they are very knowledgeable of accessibility and website compliance. So 2 great resources for you to utilize. And speaking of resources, the information that we've covered today comes from trusted sources like the WC3 Web Accessibility Guidelines, WebAIM that we looked at before, as well as Section 508 standards. If you'd like to dive deeper into any of those, you'll find links to all of those resources on our website, ctat.runstate.edu. Okay, well that brings us to an end. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us today learning about digital accessibility. If you have questions, ideas, or just want to double check something in your course or on your webpage, please reach out to us at ctatmailbox@runstate.edu. You can also find more resources at any time on our website, ctat.runstate.edu, including our previous trainings and the schedule for future trainings. Okay, well, Susan and Zach and I will stay around for a little while. If anyone has questions, we would be happy to answer those for you, or to look at any pages or situations where you need a little consultation. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you at the next training.